What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the All Things Liverpool show with me, Anish Dogra. A great week, well, better than most at least, given how well we did in Europe on Wednesday night rather, against Rangers, and leading up to obviously a very big game this weekend. Obviously, the game that has been dominant in English football over the last couple of seasons, with Liverpool and Manchester City competing for titles. Sadly, that isn't really the case right now this season, given how we started and the way we're playing and all of that. And moreover, how City are doing with Haaland up top. They are a very frightening prospect. But it's still a great game. Hopefully, it'll be a great game and a great result for us. And it'll be a great one to talk about today, analysing how the game could go. Things like potential matchups, as you see there at the bottom, Van Dijk versus Haaland. I think that's something we're all looking forward to, and just potential matchups all over the pitch. And for today, as it is a very big match, I thought it would be great to bring in some outside perspective. And today we're bringing in Sam, who is also part of Undiluted Media and a big Manchester City supporter. So he's obviously probably coming into this game very confident, I would imagine. And Sam, how are you? And how are you feeling ahead of the game?
Yeah, no, I'm good, thanks, man. Good to be on my own show for once, But good to be on, and yeah, the game should be very entertaining, very intriguing. So it'd be good to just chop it up with you and have some conversations about, a couple of the duels, Liverpool's form going into the game, and just quite a few different things. So yeah, it's good to be on, and yeah, good to have a good conversation about football. So can't go wrong.
Absolutely, yeah. Hopefully we'll have a lot to talk about over the next however many minutes we're on. So let's get right into it. And I think the best place to start off is the game on Wednesday night against Rangers. Not really a surprise in the end, even though the scoreline was very impressive, winning 7-1. But it was almost a replica of the match that was at Anfield the week before. The only difference was their keeper had a blinder in that game and kept the score down. So it was a great result for us and a much needed one. And the players who got their goals were very much needed. Nunez getting another one, which is great for his confidence. Salah coming on and getting the quickest hat-trick ever in history, Champions League history, that is. And a lot of good performances all over the pitch. So, Sam, what did you make of that game? And do you think it's something that Liverpool can really take confidence in and going into the Man City match?
So, looking at overall, obviously I was on another podcast yesterday, Ozzy, a good friend of ours, I was on his show, and we kind of briefly spoke about this game as well. So in general, I think for Liverpool, it's a good confidence boost in terms of, scoring goals, getting confidence, getting a W after that tough loss against Arsenal. But in terms of going to the City game, it can give them confidence, but it's a completely different duel in terms of who you're facing, in terms of the quality of players, the intensity, and how big the game is. And just seeing Liverpool's form in the league so far, it hasn't been that great. They had one minor slip up in the Champions League where, they were dominated by Napoli. But in a whole, just for the team morale, players like Salah, who hasn't really been playing too well in terms of the Premier League, he, as you alluded to and spoke about earlier, he came on and scored the quickest hat-trick in Champions League history. I believe it was in 6 minutes or so. So for him, it's a confidence booster because he hasn't seen a goal go in the back of the net for a while. So for him, that's something great. But I think what they can take out of it is, okay, cool, we got a W. There's confidence in the team. But, City's a different animal. We're beast, we're juggernaut. And as we said, we're going to speak about later on, you're going up against Haaland, KDB, and the big guns, De Bruyne, Phil Foden. And it's going to be a different kettle of fish. So overall for Liverpool, yeah, it's a good victory, but I don't think you can kind of look too much into it and say, okay, cool, this is how they're going to do against City.
Yeah, I think I'm spot on with that analysis. It was obviously a good win. Scoring 7 goals is always welcome, no matter who the opposition is. And like you said, with Salah getting a hat-trick, that will hopefully give him the confidence boost. But you're right, it's a different kettle of fish. It's the best team in the world. The best team in the world for the last couple of seasons, really. And that's why you've been champions for most of those years. And it'll be an interesting one. Particularly, I think the way we might set up as well. I feel obviously the last couple of weeks we've gone with the 4 attackers and the 2 in midfield.
Mm.
But I wouldn't be surprised if we change that up to on Sunday, just to really give us that balance that we've had over the last couple of seasons against City, having that midfield 3 and that front 3. But we'll talk about lineups and like who might play a bit later. But for City's point of view, how do you think they're feeling going into this game? Because they are obviously the dominant side, unbeaten, scoring for fun. Haaland's obviously a joke, and I think we all expect what should happen on Sunday.
Do you know what? I think as a team as a whole, we've been playing well, as you said, we're unbeaten. And I think really and truly we should have won all our games, because the Newcastle game, we started off really well and then we kind of slacked and then we went 3-1 down and came back. The Villa game, again, we should have won, but we dropped points. But I think overall, we'd be going to the game confident, but again, just the magnitude of this game and, going to Anfield, the fans, the atmosphere, Anfield could be very raucous. It's not going to be a Champions League night, but, a big game Sunday, the whole world's watching, 4:00 kickoff. There can be some pressures. Obviously, I do think we're going to win, but even though Liverpool are playing bad, it's still a game where these type of matches, form goes out the window. And, it's whoever gets off to a great start, the fans are involved, any little error happens and, Liverpool capitalize off it. So I'm still wary of them. I think we're going to win, but I don't think we're going to take it easy or we're going to look at Liverpool as a pushover, because at the end of the day, Liverpool still got quality players and, football's a game of 90 minutes, but anything can change in 1 second or 1 minute. So I don't think we'll be taking them lightly.
Yeah, no, I think you're right on with that again, because like you said, with City and Anfield, and it's probably the only ground in the country where you don't have a great record. It's only one win since 2003. So, one win in nearly 20 seasons.
Well,
that was the COVID season, where we had no fans, and not only that, had no centre backs. I remember I was watching highlights of that game the other day, and we were playing Fabinho and Jordan Henderson in the back line, which is far from ideal, and Curtis Jones in midfield, a very inexperienced player. So that was the only time, but down the years, it's just been a kind of a mental block for you going into that stadium, whether it is, of course, the fans, the history, and maybe even so the players, which I think is what we see the biggest thing, because Liverpool have got very good players, albeit not in great form right now, but they have the potential, they have the quality to really show it and to really, show why they still are, one of the best teams in the country, even though the form doesn't quite show it right now. But on that, for Liverpool, obviously, I think it kind of can be fair to say that the title is gone, even though it's only 8 or 9 matches in, and there's still 20 odd games to go. But with that gap, I think it's 14 points to Arsenal, even with the game in hand. But I think that game in hand is Chelsea. Do you think for Liverpool, they have to reevaluate their objectives now, and even if they win tomorrow, the title is a bridge too far to cross this season?
I think at the moment, yes, you just got to kind of take it game by game and kind of reevaluate where what you think you're going to do this season. Because I'm guessing at the beginning of the season, Liverpool fans and Liverpool as an organisation thought, we're going to challenge for the league. We've got a good enough team to compete. Like you said, at the moment, you're 14 points off the top. And I think now it's a thing where you're just taking everything game by game. And it's more like, okay, cool. Damage limitation. Can we get into the top 4? And if you're able to get into that top 4, that will be a good achievement based on how you started. I would have said previously, Liverpool's a team that can go on a run where they could say, we're going to go unbeaten for 15 or 16 games. But just the form that they're in, and we see a lot of struggles and frailties in the team currently. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Trent, but at the moment, he has been playing well. Van Dijk's had his issues. Salah's not playing well. Nunes is trying to understand and fit into the team and, understand the Premier League. So Diaz is out now. So seeing Liverpool going on a run where they're 15, 20 games unbeaten, I don't really see it now. So it's more like, as I was just saying previously, reevaluate and just say, okay, take each game as it comes and just try and look to qualify for the Champions League, as that's the main thing, to be honest, for most of the big teams if they can't win the league.
Yeah, and even that with the Champions League, it's far from a formality. We all know City's going to be there, but the other 3 spots, there's Tottenham, there's Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal. Even Newcastle, obviously they're going to spend more again in January, and they're looking very good. And with them playing one game a week, essentially, you wouldn't be surprised they're making a push for Europe. So it'll be as big a challenge really as competing for the league title as it is getting in those second, third, and fourth Champions League spots. So yeah, a real task. But I think what the biggest thing is for Liverpool is kind of getting through this month, because obviously we've got 1 month left and then the World Cup, and that's probably the biggest factor. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if you have Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Tottenham, all these clubs trying to do business behind the scenes during when the World Cup is going ahead. And I think if Liverpool can do that, get some players in, or get some players agreed at least, and then by the time the Premier League restarts, it will be the end of December, and then you're a few days away from the window officially opening. So going on to that point, obviously, if we can bring players in, I still wouldn't be that surprised if we were able to mount a challenge. Of course, I think we do have to win tomorrow, and we do have to probably win all of our games remaining in November. But if we can get through that, and if we can keep within 10, 11 points going into the new year, and like you saw last season, we were a similar gap in January to Manchester City, and we clawed that back, and in the end only lost by 1 point. So yes, you're right. I think right now the aim is just to win matches and see where we are, but it still wouldn't surprise me Liverpool can put it together when the time comes. But that's obviously getting ahead of ourselves, and I think something that's not going to not going to be in our minds for the time being. But in terms of Sunday's match, where do you think that it might be won and lost?
I think it's the usual suspects, and I think, as I was saying as well, on Aussie's pod, I think where it's going to be won, and in terms of like previous situations where we've gone to Anfield, we've played well, but we've always gone with like a false nine, and we've played Jesus out wide, and played someone down the middle that's not really an out-and-out striker. And now we've got Haaland, who's a beast, he's a machine, and all he focuses on is getting goals. I think that's where it's going to be won. And you've kind of alluded it in terms of what we're going to talk about. It's Haaland versus Van Dijk. And I think the first few games of the season, KDB, Foden, Bernardo Silva was getting used to in terms of playing the ball first time and getting Haaland into those positions where he can, bend his run, accelerate, and get onto balls. They were kind of delayed previously, whereas now Foden, especially KDB, it's like clockwork. He knows what to do. And when you see KDB like at his best, you just really look at him. He's like a mix of Gerrard and Beckham, but who's got flair and got technique, because you see him getting the ball, he can drive forward, he can find a pass, and then you can see him when he gets into half spaces, he can just whip a ball like Beckham. And I think that's going to be the thing, because as we've seen now, Haaland scored so much goals with City. Look, we knew he was going to score goals, but we didn't expect it to this amount. But you're looking at his goals, they're not worldies, they're not anything spectacular. He's in the right place at the right time. And that's one thing that we've always missed out, especially, playing Liverpool, where it's going to be a battle, it's going to be a raucous atmosphere, and we need someone that can take the game by the scruff of the neck and just say, look, you know what, I'm going to score, quieten the fans. And that's what you need to do when you go to Anfield. So I think it's definitely going to be one in that midfield in terms of KDB, and then up front with Haaland in terms of finishing what he needs to finish in terms of taking those chances.
Yeah, absolutely. I think getting Haaland, it definitely has taken you to a new level, because not only is he an absolute animal the way he plays and what he does on and off the ball, but it's just the fact that he has that natural instinct to know where the ball is going to land from De Bruyne, from Foden, or Bernardo, or whoever's feeding the ball into him. And that's something you can't teach, no matter how good you are as a manager. It's something that you have from day one. And with Haaland, you see all of his goals, they're all within that space, all within the 18-yard box, center of the goal most of the time. And that's something obviously we got to try and deal with, whether we stick someone on him, and obviously I think we'll talk about what a job maybe Van Dijk could do, and hopefully if he can do something, that's something we could look into. But essentially, I think if you're able to stop Haaland, I think you can almost stop City, because then it's almost like reverting back to what City used to be the last couple of seasons, playing that false nine. And don't get me wrong, there's still enough talent there to win a game on its own, but it's not that final touch that has been included this season when Haaland is there.
But just there, don't you think if you kind of focus too much on Haaland, we've still got great players around in that it gives them more space to do stuff. And once you focus on him, opens up more space. And one little lapse of error, Haaland can still get in and, you know, make the magic and score goal that he'll usually do. Don't you think even if you do focus on him, it still opens up play for the other players you've got, whether it's going to be Mahrez playing, Grealish, Foden, De Bruyne, Bernardo Silva, just the plethora of names I'm just saying now. It's like, you give them an opportunity.
It's such a joke.
You know what I mean?
No, yeah, you're definitely right. You're definitely right with that. But then I feel City have kind of changed the way they played, where it's almost to just give the ball to Haaland, put the ball in the area, and that's it. Don't get me wrong, De Bruyne can still, you know, put one in from 30 yards. Foden could do the same. Any of those players can. But I think because of the way City have transitioned this season to playing with an actual number 9, I think it's even different from when you had Aguero and Jesus as your strikers, because they weren't actual number 9s. They weren't in the box, stayed in the middle all the time. They were, you know, they kind of came short, came to feet, went left, went right. So I feel this is like the only proper number 9 you've had since Edin Dzeko, really. I think it's been that long.
Yeah, and even
someone who just stayed in the box.
Even do build up. Whereas Haaland's he's not fussed about touches or building up. It's like, okay, cool.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm just going direct to the box, and this is my bread and butter, and this is where I'm gonna, you know, finish off the opportunities. And that's what I was saying in terms of when we play in Liverpool now. When we've gone to Liverpool, we never had that guy. We've had guys floating around, dropping deep, and there's not. Even though they do say sometimes that's the hardest thing in football, to mark nobody, because you got to know when to come deep and stay back. But I think having Haaland as that vocal point where, you know, he's gonna be in the box. He's already a massive unit. He's strong, he's solid, and he can cause a lot of trouble. And I think we got to use that to our advantage, even if it's, you know, whipping in balls for crosses and so forth. But I just think Haaland is going to be the X factor as well.
That's absolutely. It'll be a major surprise if he hasn't scored. If he won't score at least 2, I think, tomorrow. You know, I captain in my FPL. That's how confident I am in him.
Crazy. Against your own team, crazy.
Exactly. I just like, even if it pains me, you just can't you can't not. I've even got Foden in my team. You know, he's actually got a very good record at Anfield. He scored in the last 2 seasons. So yeah, I think both will have a bit of fun. And I think especially for Haaland, he's got that experience of playing at Anfield. When he was playing for RB Salzburg, and he got his first taste of playing there. He even scored, albeit a tap in, but he's got that experience. He knows what it's like to play in a big atmosphere in a special occasion. So I think that will bode in very well going into the game on Sunday. But without further ado, let's talk about obviously the lineups. And I think there's obviously, we all know that he's definitely going to start. And that's one name we can tick off our list. But who else do you think will be in the City lineup?
So look, we're gonna go. We know it's the normal 4-3-3. We're gonna go play. So I say in goal, obviously that's a given. Ederson. I think right back's gonna be Cancelo. Obviously Walker's out, and obviously I've been very impressed with how he's played this season. Centre back and left back. Ake, and I think Ake's going to start left back because it gives. Obviously, it's not a game where you want to place Sergei Gomez. He's new to the league, is adapting, and it's Anfield. But then I also think playing Ake left back just gives us that extra safety net in terms of if we do kind of shift formations, we can always go to that 3 at the back and have Ake. I think he's going to play left back, and then in the middle. The centre backs, I think it's going to be Diaz and Akanji. And I've been really impressed with Akanji. Like, to be honest, when we signed him, I was really thinking, why we signed him? Really got 4 centre backs.
Kind of came out the blue as well. Like, there was no rumours. Then all of a sudden, bang, deadline day, you see him coming for 16 million or whatever it was.
Exactly. It was cheap and it was snippet and it was a great signing. And I was thinking, like, why do you want to have an odd number of defenders for an even amount you normally have, which is either 2, you have 4, as you would know, innit? So I was like, what's the point of us signing him? But we've had some injuries in terms of Laporte coming back, Stone's injured, Diaz has been suspended here and there, and Akanji just slotted in really well in terms of defending attributes, comfortable on the ball, can drive forward, can find a pass. So the back four, I think Cancelo right back, Ake left back, Diaz and Akanji in the middle. I'm not too sure about Rodri where he's at. In this type of game, you need someone that's going to play that pivot role and actually just stay there and support the back two, the central defenders. But I don't know if he's going to start. So I'm going to say Gundogan. And I think I love Gundogan as a player in terms of he's got that Lampard-esque where he knows his runs.
Late runs.
Yes, to get in the box, the late runs are really great. But I think in this game, he has to be very disciplined and know when to do that. Because if we're just playing with three, basically number 8s in the middle and rumping, just bombing forward, that just leaves us open in the midfield, and you don't want to do that. So just based on injury, I think Gundogan will start as the 6, and then the 2 8s. It's inevitable. It's De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva. In terms of Foden's been immense this season, been dope. He's balled out. Obviously got a hat trick against United, and he started off the first goal for us. So I think Foden's going to start, but I think Foden's going to start off on the left. Just in terms of the great record he's got at Liverpool and the form he's in, I think Mahrez is going to start. To be fair, I think Grealish will probably go to the bench. I think Mahrez will start on the right, and then the big man, Erling, Brute, Haaland up front.
It's such a frightening prospect, and even you look like you said, the names who aren't going to start. You mentioned Grealish there. You got £100 million player to bring on off the bench.
Exactly.
There's Alvarez, of course, who I've actually been quite impressed with when he's played this season, and so many other names that I can't think on the top of my head. But it's such a joke, the amount of depth that you have and quality depth, no less. So yeah, I think I do expect City to play like that as well. If Rodri is fit, then I fully expect him to start, because I think that's probably the one area where we can potentially exploit not having a proper defensive midfielder there. Don't get me wrong, that midfielder is still very gifted, very hardworking, and will do a lot of the ball, but they don't have that mindset of knowing when to snap out danger. And just taking it back to that 2-2 draw last season at Anfield, Rodri made that last ditch clearance when Fabinho had an open goal. It's things like that. Like if Gundogan wasn't in that position, or Bernardo or De Bruyne, they wouldn't have thought or reacted quick enough to make that block. So if Rodri isn't fit, I think that'll be a big boost for us and somewhere we can potentially exploit. And then that leaves us obviously with the question of what kind of firstly formation and obviously personnel to choose up front. Personally, for me, I think obviously the back four is a given. Alisson in goal. Well, it's not really actually a given because I saw your pod yesterday with Ozzy and Ozzy doing his predicted lineup. But in the last 24 hours, typically in Liverpool's case right now, Konate wasn't pictured in training today, which is a massive blow for us, given that we don't have many defenders available right now. So if that is the case, like he was not pictured in training, and he's picked up a little knock, or he's not quite fully fit because he's just come back from injury, we'll have to see. Hopefully that's not the case, because there was something similar that happened to Thiago last week before Arsenal. He wasn't pictured in training, but he still played. So providing Konate is fit, which I hope he is, then I think it'll be Gomez at right back. I'm actually quite happy with his performance against Rangers, and I actually generally think he could be a better right back than he is as a centre back, because for me, obviously the debate between him and Trent at right back is Gomez is much more athletic. He's a lot quicker, a lot more physical, and has better defensive awareness. But Trent, we all know how great he is going forward, and the amount of chances he creates and goals he scores, and obviously set pieces. But I thought Gomez was pretty good against Rangers defensively, and he even produced a very good assist, I think, for our second goal. Trent-esque almost, putting in a whipped cross from the right. So if Gomez is in, Konate's fit, then I think Gomez will start at right back, and I think that'll be a good option, especially to combat that left side for you with Foden and the pace that he has, and obviously the trickery. I think Gomez will have a better chance of dealing with that than Trent would. And then providing Konate is fit, I think that will be obviously the third centre back, and then Van Dijk. And even though I think Tsimikas has done well in recent weeks when Robertson has been injured, I feel Robertson is now fully fit and fully ready to come back. And I think as you saw on Wednesday against Rangers. He looked good. He looked sharp. Looked like he'd gained that extra bit of pace that he lost in the matches he was playing again. So it was great to see him back to full fitness. And then I think obviously the biggest question right now is whether we go with the trusted 4-3-3 that has obviously worked for us for so many seasons, or we go with this with this experiment of the double midfield pivot and then the three attackers and one up front. Personally, for me, I would actually go back to the 4-3-3 on this occasion, just so that we can have that ability to kind of battle City's midfield, obviously with what's going to be likely your midfield three with De Bruyne, Gundo, and Bernardo Silva. I think we need to match up that. So I think Henderson should come in. I think Fabinho will keep his place, and I think Thiago will start this time. Failing that, if we don't go for that, I definitely expect Thiago and Fabinho to be that midfield double pivot instead. But personally, I think it's better if we went with the three, so we can come back with that. And then up front, Salah, no question. Jota, I think, is no question at all as well. And then, even though Nunes is showing signs that he's settling in, he's getting a bit better, he's adding a bit more of a final touch, and his finishing is looking a little bit better. I think you can't leave Firmino out right now. I think he's the bright spark in the team, or him and when Diaz before Diaz got injured. But Firmino right now, he's playing on the level that he was a couple of seasons ago when he really came to the fore. And I think right now he's probably our most creative spark, really. And with that forward three, you can kind of go old school Liverpool, where this season has been a big change with Salah. I think that's the biggest thing, because with Nunes coming in and with a change of formation, playing with a target man, Salah's had to play a lot more further out wide, and that means less likely to goal, less likely to get shot away. But if you were able to play with that 4-3-3 with Firmino and that false nine, I think you'll see Salah a lot more central and in the positions that we saw him against Rangers. And it wasn't a surprise to see Salah get a hat-trick, because he was in the area where he knows that position. That's his bread and butter. That's where we've seen Salah for the last 4 or 5 seasons. That's where he's got his goals from, and that's what he loves to do and what he knows to do. So I think if we went for that, we would have a more than good chance of winning the game. But on the flip side, again, if we went for the 4-2-3-1, I would be also just as happy to see Nunes having that chance of going up against that back line.
And that's what I was just about to say, because obviously you spent a lot of money on Nunes. I think it's the numbers range from 80 million up front, range up to 100 million or whatever the figure is. And I think obviously the other guys around him are getting old, so he's going to be the new main focal point. So based on what you're saying and how Firmino's played as well, it might be the reason why they're going to play that 4-2-3-1, because you can fit all 4 of them in. Firmino playing at number 10 role, you've got your focal point and a pressing forward in Nunes that can get forward, and then you've got your width with Jota and Salah. And I kind of agree with you, and I spoke about this with Ozzy yesterday in terms of Salah. Like this season, the reason why I would say he hasn't performed so well is because he's having to adjust to playing wide, but playing as more of a inverted winger instead of an inverted forward. Because before, he was the guy that people were looking for him to end up on the passes and finish them and put them in the back of the net. Whereas now, as Nunes is your focal point and Nunes is an actual number 9, he has to supply Nunes with balls now, and that's not Salah's remit or his best talent in terms of assist and bringing other people into the game. He's the guy that wants to finish off the chances, and that's where they kind of miss Mane in terms of Mane did all the dog work, and Salah was the guy that would finish off and get all the rewards and all the headlines. But what Mane did was really effective, and I think he's having to adjust to that. Whereas he's actually have to play really wide. Whereas before, when you had Firmino dropping into the 10 role, you had enough space for Salah to invert centrally and be more like an inverted forward as well, instead of an inverted winger where he's more wide and has to kind of get balls into the box. So it's something he needs to adjust to, and I guess it's something Liverpool need to kind of figure out how they want to play moving forward in terms of getting the best out of him and Nunes. But I just think Nunes has had a few good games back to back, especially against Arsenal. Played really well, ran the channels, was always a threat, pressing, and he got his goal, which he kind of deserved. I don't know if you could drop him, but it might be a tactic where you use him as someone that can come off the bench. But if you did want to kind of get the best out of your team, I would say you would use that front four in terms of Firmino as the 10, Salah, Jota out wide, and you've got a focal point where, you can kind of stretch the defense, mess up the defense in terms of bullying and stuff like that, and just give, the City defender something to worry about. Whereas if you don't play Nunez, you've got Firmino and he's dropping into midfield, the City defenders are going to be happy with that all day because it's like, okay, cool. Bobby's not going to beat us for pace. He's not going to give us a threat. And if we've got no one to defend, City are used to that anyway, because in training, they're defending against false nines anyway, most of the time. Yeah. So it's nothing new. So it'll be very intriguing and, interesting to see what Team Klopp goes with anyway, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great piece of analysis with that. And you almost got to feel kind of sorry a bit for Salah because, like you said, he's never played that role before. And when he's been at Liverpool now for 5 years now, this is, I think, a sixth season, and he's played one position and one style of football for so long, and all of a sudden, at the age of 31 as well, when if he was 25, 26, he could probably adjust his game, but he's in his 30s now, and he's still very, very good. But it's difficult when you're at that age to change your game completely and be more of a creator rather than a finisher. So yeah, it's a real conundrum. It's a good problem to have, obviously, when you got a good striker in Nunez and you got one of the best players in the Premier League with Salah. So hopefully, for our sake, we're able to sort it out soon, and hopefully it will happen on Sunday. So yeah, that's with the predicted lineups. Then I think one of the biggest talking points will, of course, be the matchup between our defense and obviously Virgil van Dijk and Erling Haaland. So how do you think that's going to go?
It's going to be a tricky one because so far Van Dijk hasn't really had a great season. He hasn't really started off well. And when you see Van Dijk, he's a defender that he doesn't really engage. He does a lot of jockeying. And against Haaland, who's a person that he's not trying to dribble past you. He's trying to get the ball and use his pace and physicality to get past you and obviously get into the box. So this is going to be a very interesting battle because I don't think when Van Dijk's playing against this type of striker, it's not against a team that's got so much creativity in terms of they can do so much stuff and he can get into the right positions. And it's an issue for Van Dijk. It's normally you're playing against maybe a Mitrovic, but the service he's getting isn't going to be a KDB or a De Bruyne or Foden or Mahrez. And I think with all the creativity we've got and then the attributes that, Haaland's got in terms of pace, speed, height, strength, I think it's going to be a long night for both of your defenders because they're going to see a lot of stuff that they haven't seen from a striker that's playing in this type of team that creates so many chances and so physical. It could be a nightmare for them. And we've seen Van Dijk play against lesser strikers and have some nightmares. So now you're going against arguably the best striker in the Premier League in terms of what he's got to offer. I think this is going to be a big duel and a big test to see where Van Dijk really is at this season and how high esteemed people have ranked him in terms of saying he's arguably one of the best defenders to ever play in the Premier League, which I think that's a bit premature because there's been a lot of great defenders that's played in the Premier League, and putting Van Dijk up there just based on, a 4-year span that he's had with Liverpool or 5-year span is a bit crazy. So I think this game against City and the matchup against Haaland is going to be a battle where he's going to want to try and show out and say, look, this is why I'm Virgil van Dijk, and people say, you know what, I'm that guy. But I do think that Haaland's going to give him some sleepless nights on Sunday.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised one bit. Haaland's done it to everyone in Germany, and he's already done it to half the league already. So yeah, wouldn't surprise me one bit if he gives Van Dijk a nightmare or two on Sunday. But I want to pick up on. Sorry,
what's your thoughts on the battle?
I think, I first want to pick up on that point you mentioned about Haaland and that little thing with Mitrovic as well, because it's a little bit a similar style of play. They want to run in, they want to hold the ball off. They're big, strong physical players, and we saw what Mitrovic did to Van Dijk on the opening day, and what Haaland could do. And I think with Van Dijk, because if you actually think about it, there's not been strikers like that he's faced for a long time. I feel
Exactly.
obviously there's been Kane, but Kane isn't the player that Haaland is. Kane drops deep, gets involved in the build up. That's why he doesn't have the number 9 shirt. He wears number 10. And he's he doesn't often stick to the top of the pitch and just wants to get goals and that's it. And if you also look at all the other strikers that he's come up against, whether it was Aguero or whoever Chelsea had in years gone by, or Manchester United, there's nothing like that really challenged Van Dijk to the absolute extremes. And I think now this will be the biggest test he'll ever face, and we'll see now how he does, because like you said, with Haaland being the best striker in the Premier League, and I think for me right now in the world, I can't think of another player who's doing better than him across Europe. Maybe just Benzema or Lewandowski, but even then, Haaland's doing it in a tougher league. So I think with Van Dijk, he just needs to show. He needs to show what he's got. I've actually accused him a little bit of playing within himself, because I think for him and the World Cup, I think that's a big thing. The age that he is, he's 31 now, or 32. This will probably be the only World Cup he'll ever get to play in and captain, his country. At the next one, he'll be 35, and by then, he might not have been selected. Well, yeah, definitely won't be the same player at 35 years old. And I think also last season, missing the Euros with Netherlands, because obviously the 2021 season he was out for the whole campaign, and wasn't fit to go to the Euros. I think that's kind of played on his mind. That ACL injury has come into his head, and he's thinking, I don't want to risk getting hurt. I don't want to risk missing out on another tournament and the only chance to have playing at the World Cup. And I think that's affected his performance immensely this season. He's almost gone, okay, let me just protect myself, and if it doesn't matter what happens at the beginning of the season, because I just want to make sure that I'm there for my country. And you can understand that point, because the World Cup is the pinnacle of football, and when you're a captain as well, it's even more special. But I think because of that, it's now dented his confidence, and it kind of makes me think that he's not going to be able to compete against Haaland, purely because the form that both these players are in. Van Dijk is conceding a lot of goals. Even the goal against Rangers on Wednesday night, it was all a collective fault defensively with that, losing the ball, then all the other players didn't react quick enough. Van Dijk didn't react, Tsimikas. So again, when you're looking at Van Dijk, you're looking at the leader of the defense. When the other three defenders aren't quite at it, you hope that he is right up there and he will bail you out, as he has done for most seasons. But I think right now he's just not really thinking about Liverpool too much, and that's going to cost him, I think, dearly on Sunday. Again, I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope that he shows that he is the man. He is, a reason why there is a conversation of him being in the shortlist for some of the best Premier League centre backs of all time. And if he's able to do that, if he's able to keep Haaland quiet and keep a clean sheet, I think that will do him the world of confidence. It'll obviously do us the world of confidence. And if you're looking at it tactically, he has every reason to be able to match with Haaland, because if you look at their pace, I still remember one clip, I think it was a couple of years ago, when France were playing Netherlands, and Mbappe was sprinting down halfway down the pitch, and Van Dijk kept up with him the whole way. So clearly, Van Dijk, he's got the pace. If you can keep up with Mbappe, you can keep up with every other player in the world. And so if you're looking at it pace-wise, looking at it physically, Van Dijk's a big player, very tall, very strong. He has every tool in his box to be able to deal with Haaland. And even if Haaland goes on to the other side and tries to battle with Konate and with Gomez, I also think they'll have just about enough to deal with him. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how both players do. And everything, Haaland has the edge going into the match, obviously with the form and how Liverpool are right now. But it wouldn't surprise me if Van Dijk raised his game just for this one-off, so that he can show, and we can show everyone how to stop Haaland. And I really hope that is the case. But obviously with him, with all the other players this season, bar a couple, they've not really performed very well. And I think that's exactly why we should talk about Liverpool's season so far. Because if you're looking at the back end of last season, we were and that's a bit of capitulation away from winning the Premier League title, and a Thibaut Courtois masterclass from the Champions League, and then all 4 trophies. You talk about probably the best team ever in football in Premier League in history. If Liverpool did that, I don't think there would have been much of a debate. And it's obviously kind of I think the biggest thing that is carried over to this season, having that hangover, playing every single minute of every single game last season. I think it's a genuine reason why Liverpool has started so poorly. So do you think that's a reason, or is it because the players just can't be bothered anymore, and they won everything technically, all of those players, and they can't get up for it for another season?
Do you know what it is? I think that could be part of it, but obviously off camera last week after the show, we kind of discussed it there briefly, and I think where, especially when you've got coaches and managers like Pep and Klopp who are very intense and demand a lot of their players. A lot of the players there's a mental fatigue in it, because from Pep anyway, he never stays at a club longer than 3 years or 3.5 years. This has been his longest stint at a club, going 6-7 years now. And I think very similar to Klopp in terms of he wants you to play that high press, the gegen press, fast paced, and there's only so long you can do it. And then the players are human, in it, so they're gonna get burnt out. There's gonna be some fatigue, so that's one part of it. And also, I think as well, in terms of Liverpool and City, yes, me being a City fan, yes, we've got money to spend, but we always try and refresh the squad. Whether it's 2 or 3 players out, we bring 2 new players in, just so there's a new hunger and everyone's fighting for their positions. Where we Sterling goes, we bring in Alvarez. We got Grealish. Jesus goes, we got Haaland. We've brought in Calvin Phillips, even though he's been injured. We've refreshed. But in terms of Liverpool, apart from that season you had 2018, 2019, where you brought in Alisson, you brought in Van Dijk, you brought in Fabinho, Keita, all those guys, and then everyone was fighting for their positions, and everyone knew if I played bad, this person's going to replace me. That's when Liverpool at their peak, at their apex. And obviously, since then, you've brought in 1 or 2 players. You might have brought in a Diaz, or you might have brought in a Thiago, but that's only been 1 player. And then you've brought in other players that have been young, that can't really make a difference now. And it's like Klopp's been loyal to a fault in terms of players like Oxlade-Chamberlain's still been there. You haven't got a replacement for him. Milner's still there. You haven't got a replacement for him. Trent's been predominantly your right back all the time. Yes, Joe Gomez can slot in there, but he's more of a centre back. You recently got Calvin Ramsey, but maybe that was a year too late. You should have brought in someone previously or earlier. So I think it's in terms of why Liverpool's like this is because burnout, and then also they haven't refreshed the squad. In terms of FSG, I think they should actually just go on a recruitment drive where they spend 180 million, bring in 4 or 5 players or 4 players, and then at least okay, cool, we've brought in top quality players. The team's more hungry, the team's been rejuvenated, and we can battle again. But you can't be going to battle with Henderson, Milner, Oxlade-Chamberlain, the same players that have been there from the beginning of Klopp's era till now. And players age, players are not robots, players are brittle, they're fragile. So I think it's more just so they haven't recruited well enough in terms of bringing in mass players. They brought in some good players and identified players as well, but they just haven't carried on spending. Like even for example, Christopher Nkunku, that's someone I thought would have gone to Liverpool, but now he's gone to Chelsea.
Yeah,
that's someone
really disappointed with that. That would have been like a perfect signing for us, especially if we're going to go for that 4-2-3-1 eventually long term. Having Nkunku as that number 10 behind Nunes, that'll be like a perfect player.
So yeah, I think that's what it is. I think you can go based on they played a lot of games, but then that also goes into and coincides with burnout in terms of mentally and physically, and then just in terms of the recruitment hasn't been as consistent and as good enough as it should have been for a team like Liverpool.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right with that. And though I think the biggest thing is obviously the recruitment, and whether you want to blame fans want to blame FSG, which I think they have a right to. Maybe they haven't invested enough, but I think Klopp does deserve to share a part of that blame, really, because like you say, you look at the loyalty, and there's a line I'll always remember that Klopp said in a press conference. It was when Ox did his ACL back in 2018, after that game against Roma. His quote was, "We will wait for him like a good wife waits for husband when they come out of prison," and it was a great quote at the time because it was nice, like it was a great gesture. You want to welcome Ox back, but then if you're looking at him now, you're looking at that quote 4 years later, you can kind of criticize that quote because it shows how loyal Klopp is towards his players. And don't get me wrong, I felt for Ox because I generally thought he could have been that guy for us in midfield because he was arguably our best midfielder that season up until he got that ACL injury, and that obviously kind of ruined it, and he's not been the same player. But once that happens, you got to let him go, and we've not done that. We've not done that with Oxlade-Chamberlain, who should have left the beginning of last summer. Worst case, should have gone this summer. Keita the same. Milner, I never minded him being given a contract extension purely because he's great to have in and around the club, great to play in cup games, and help the young players blood in.
Milner shouldn't just be a player that should be getting games, like you said, as a leader, as what he can bring as a mentor, keep him around.
Exactly.
Someone that you kind of rely on, where you have to bring him on to play games. Like Milner should not be in anyone's first 18. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Literally, like you can bring him up for the final 10 minutes of a match, or you play him in games that aren't as meaningful in the cup games, and that's obviously been a big problem. We've played Milner so much this season. I think even Milner surprised himself that he's in the starting lineup so much. He's like, oh my god, why am I still starting every week? I'm 37 years old. I should be, in a chair right now, just sitting down and relaxing. But that's the case we're in. And then you look at others. Jordan Henderson, to a certain extent, he's now, you can see he's slowing down. So yeah, it's definitely been a case of being too loyal towards players, and I think they are changing that now, because I think the biggest example we can kind of give is Bobby Firmino. There's been a lot of rumors and strong rumors that he's not going to be given a new contract this season, and so he will leave on a free next summer, which is for me, I think it's a big surprise given how he's playing, but I think it's also the right decision because you want to let him leave on a high, like with Mane. I know people say we miss Mane, and we kind of do for that reason, but people only highlight the fact that we missed Mane because of how good he was towards the second half of last season. But the first half, he was pretty woeful. And the season before that, he wasn't that good either. So he only picked up his form towards the last 4 or 5 months. And it was the right decision to let him go. And I think it'll be the same with Firmino. So I think you're seeing now that Klopp is being a little less loyal towards the players. Obviously, they've been fantastic for us. All of those players are legends for doing what they have in the last 4 or 5 years, but it's the right time to let them go, to change it up, to bring new players in, younger players, and build, a Klopp 2.0 team where they will be challenging for Premier League titles again, more Champions Leagues, and doing a lot of great things. So hopefully that will happen. And like I said with the earlier point, I think once this month is over, once the World Cup starts, that will be a big thing for us to get players back from injury, Diaz, of course, and moreover, being able to sign players in January, which I think it will be done, because I've been watching a lot of podcasts from other Liverpool content creators, and there's one journalist I watch quite regularly called Lawrence McKenna, Lostcast, you might have heard of, and he, I think, has quite good knowledge inside the club, and he's always mentioning how Liverpool are looking to bring in midfielders, and in the summer, he said that Liverpool had deals agreed to sign some midfielders, but Klopp said no for whatever reason. Obviously, we don't know who the names were, but you can guess on the players that were being regularly linked. I think Mateus Nunes was one, and there were a couple of other players. So clearly, there were options to sign in the summer, and I think it's almost a case of when and not if Liverpool bring in players in January. So
yeah,
it's obviously a big change coming up. It's not been a great start to the season, but like you said, there's still time. There's still, more than 2/3 of the season to go. And even if we don't win the Premier League, we can still make it a very successful year. The Champions League is still there, and I think we're all but qualified now. We just need 1 point of our last 2 matches, and even going for the cups again. Obviously it's not the same as the Premier League, but it's more trophies, and you want to just try and keep that good feeling going for as long as possible. So let's hope Liverpool do it. Obviously for City, you'll hope that they won't have a great season being our rival, but I got to hope that we can do something at least. So anyway, I think that is all we've covered for today. I think we've talked about both teams very well. Obviously, I hope Liverpool will do well on Sunday, put in a good performance, and if we can do that, I think we'll have a decent chance of winning. But Sam, what do you think is going to happen on Sunday? What's your score prediction?
Obviously, I think the form that we're on and the way we're playing, I think we're going to come out with a victory. And I think it's going to be 3-1. I think Haaland, Foden, De Bruyne will be in the score sheet. And yeah, we'll be leaving Anfield, in a good mood. But I wouldn't be surprised if, Liverpool step up their game and we get a draw. Like for me, as I was saying yesterday, Anfield's a tough place to go. So even if we get a point, I'm happy to take that, pack our bags and just move on to the next ones. But I think we'll win, but I don't mind a draw. But I'm going for a 3-1 victory to the blue team from Manchester.
I think you're pretty much right with that, and I don't think it'll be a 3-1 where you kind of dominate the game. I do expect a reaction from us, and I do think we will play very, very well. And I can almost see it being City go 1-0 up, Liverpool get level, and then City go 2-1 up, and then we're chasing to equalise again. Then you hit us on the counter, and it ends 3-1. I wouldn't be surprised one bit if that happens. So I think it'll be a 2-1 win to City. I think again it'll be a little bit different. I think City will go 2-0 up. I feel they'll just dominate the first half. We won't come out off the blocks, and City will just be right up for it. They go 2-0 up at half time. And then I think we'll get one to make it interesting in the second half, but I think City will hold out at the end. That's me thinking logically and thinking where we are right now, where City are. Obviously, if I'm thinking in my heart and thinking illogically, I think we'll win 3-0. We'll blow you away in the first 45 minutes, like we've done in so many seasons in the past, and we'll come away with a big smile on our face. But I'm very, very optimistic, thinking very optimistically that will happen. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting. Hopefully, it'll also be a good season in terms of a title race. Of course, Arsenal are up there right now. And in fact, let's give you quick thoughts on that. Because obviously, Arsenal they're doing very, very well. The teams they face, they were expected to win, and they have done. The likes of Bournemouth, Fulham, all those other teams, and then the three matches who were challenging games. Let's see, they had United away, Tottenham at home, and Liverpool at home. So I think with Arsenal, with those three games, I felt it were three games where the results should have been all wins. I know two of them were against us and against Tottenham, but Arsenal were going into that game in better form, and I think most people expected them to beat us. And in the end, they got a little bit lucky. All it was decided by was a contentious penalty decision, which I think was a very harsh call. And Tottenham at home, in that fixture, in the North London derby, the home team always wins. I can't remember the last time Tottenham won at Emirates, and I can't remember the last time Arsenal won at their ground. So that fixture is always the one where the home team wins. And then you look at United, that was the one big test, and they did well. I thought they played very well, but they didn't take their chances, and then they lost because of the counter-attack. And do you feel because of that, because of those three results against the so-called big teams, where they've done well in two, not done well in the other, it's kind of a sign that where they will come unstuck later on in the season when they play you, when they go to Chelsea, when they go to Anfield and Tottenham and etc.
Yeah, and that's what I think, because obviously Arsenal, they've started off well. They've had a few easy games, but then they played United, where everyone thought they were going to beat United, and they lost. And then, like you said, the North London derby is a toss-up, and form goes out the window in the derby, so that's irrelevant. And then the Liverpool game, yes, they won, but again, it could have gone either way. If Liverpool closed out the first half and then came out in the second half a different way, and Arsenal's behind, how are the fans going to react? How are the players going to react to the adversity? So I still take Arsenal's, where they are with a pinch of salt. You got to give them credit because they've done what they've been able to do and beat the teams in front of them, and they've only lost one game. But I just feel that, they played United away, so they're going to play the return leg at home. But then Tottenham away, they're probably going to get an L. Go to Anfield, they'll probably lose. And then again, Chelsea's a game where they don't really have the best record playing against Chelsea home or away, to be fair. So that's going to be another difficult task. Then they've got us home and away. I look at Arsenal, they're like our sons, innit? They basically want to play like us. The build up, I saw a meme the other day. I even posted on our socials that Pep was so bored of strolling the league.
I saw that one as well. Yeah,
take his own manager and give him some of his players just so he can.
And
that's
that was really funny.
That's what basically it is. So, and with Arsenal, again, a game like Leeds is going to kind of test them, because this is a game last season where they would have gone and dropped points and lost. So, if they win that, it shows that they've kind of overcome that barrier of they're losing to the teams below them, and it's all about what they can do against the teams above them. So, look, it's only 9 games. There's 29 games to go. A lot of things can change. Injuries can happen. Burnout can happen. Arsenal's a very young team. They still got Europa League. There's the World Cup to play. There's FA Cup. There's Carling Cup. There's the league. There's, games every 3 days or however long it's going to be. Have they got the squad, and has Arteta got that experience to make the right changes at the right time and drop players and rest players? So there's a long way to go in the season. And yeah, we just have to right now, especially with Arsenal, just take everything with a pinch of salt. Yes, they've done what they should be doing now, but I see them probably finishing the top 4. But I don't know how close they are to winning the league. I don't think they're anywhere near winning the league, to be fair.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right with that. I think, like you said, the biggest thing is that squad depth, because if you look at that first 11, I think you're right. There's a reason that's why they're top right now, because that first 11, I think, is definitely arguably worth the challenge for the league title. But it's that drop off. It's who do you replace in midfield when Thomas Partey gets injured? You can't really have many options. You got Lokonga there, who is still quite inexperienced.
Yeah.
Jesus, you got Nketiah, again, inexperienced. And then you look on the wings, there's Martinelli and Smith Rowe. The other players you got there are Martinelli and Saka, beg your pardon, but you got Smith Rowe and I think that Marquinhos, that Brazilian player. Yeah. Again, very inexperienced, very, very raw. So you're looking at that overall squad, and it's just not quite there to compete for a title. But if they can, again, just like Liverpool, get through this month with a lot of positive results, and they're still top of the table come the end of this month and going into the World Cup, and then when the season restarts, if they're able to get a player or two in January, you never know. So it'll be interesting. But I still expect City to go on and win it. I think with that firepower up top with Haaland and just that know-how winning titles, he won it now two seasons in a row, and I think that will be a big part of you winning it for a third time. Very reluctantly for me to say that.
It'll be good because a team hasn't won it 3 times in a row in a while, and it's only been United that's really done it, to be fair. So
yeah, I think United team have done it ever, in fact.
Yeah, they've done it twice. So it'll be a great achievement if Pep can do it. And obviously, in terms of, again, kind of a side note and digressing a little bit, just in terms of the team that we've got, and in previous years in the Champions League, where we've kind of struggled is just having that goal scorer that we're playing poor, but he can get a goal, he can nick something. And I think even in the Champions League, we're looking very scary in terms of, we should have really got to the final last year in terms of beating Real Madrid. But look, we had, 5 minutes of madness, but we had so many chances where we should have taken chances. And I think having Haaland now, in terms of a guy that can just sniff out a goal and that's all he cares about, he's going to kind of get us over that finish line and hopefully to the promised land. So this season, to be fair, for City, is looking like it can be a special season.
I think so. Yeah, I think it'll be a case of sooner or later, especially with the Champions League. It does feel inevitable right now. But anyway, Sam, I think that is all we've got for today. So thank you very much for jumping on. It's great to get a Man City point of view and predict what's going to happen on Sunday, and obviously get an analysis of what Liverpool is going through right now. So thank you very much for coming on today. And everyone, we will, of course, be back again next week to review Liverpool probably losing 5-0 on Sunday. And obviously there's also midweek matches in the Premier League. We got West Ham next after Man City, and then another league match. And it's all very thick and fast, and there'll be a lot of games coming up. So hopefully Liverpool do get a few wins in those, especially in the league. We've got more wins in Europe than we have in the Premier League. We've got 3 in Europe and two in the league. So hopefully that can end very soon. But anyways, Sam, thank you very much again. Everyone, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Take it easy, man.